Obviously, quarterback situation with the Chicago Bears franchise history has always been a touchy subject for fans. And we've had some great seasons and some great quarterbacks, such as Jay Cutler, Rex Grossman, Jim McMahon, and many others. But my personal favorite that I get to have on today's show to break down Caleb Williams and what he brings to the Chicago Bears is one of the Bears' all-time greats, my good friend, Erik Kramer. Erik, welcome back to the show.
Appreciate you having me. Always good to talk a little Bears football.
And Erik, I mean, the biggest topic for the last month, I mean, I know that you were watching it on your phone at, I believe, a wedding, you said, but Caleb Williams is the next quarterback. What was your initial reaction when it happened?
Well, like everybody, I knew it was coming. And so then the upside of what I like about it is that Caleb looks to be a guy who's played in really two elite college programs in Oklahoma, where he started out, and then finishing up at USC. Played for the same coach, but had to learn, a new set of players around him. And I think did a great job of that. I think he brings so much upside potential in terms of his athleticism. He's not just athletic, he's sturdy and athletic. And so if I talk about what I wished I would have seen so far, but what I think is coming is a guy who can just play the game simply, like not make it too difficult. So pretty much every offensive system is set up to move yourself, isolate one key defender, put him in a pickle, and then make a decision based on that guy. And that's one thing that I think he can learn to do, because that's the simple thing. And so hopefully with repetition in the system he's in, and I think more importantly, surrounded by the coaches he's surrounded with and the players he's around, there's a standard where everybody's got to do that, not just the quarterback. So I don't think that's going to be an issue moving forward, because freelance doesn't work.
Gotcha. And when it comes to Caleb, obviously he's one of the best prospects from the quarterback position to ever come out of college, at least in the last 2 decades, let's say.
Okay.
He walking into the situation that he's walking into with the Chicago Bears, a new offensive coordinator. He has 3 really good wide receivers in Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and now Rome Odunze, along with 2 strong tight ends in Gerald Everett and Cole Kmet. As a quarterback, and especially as a rookie, how does that change the projection for him and how he can perform out of the gate?
Okay, so you just named the fact that he's probably let's just call him the best college quarterback, or the best quarterback coming out of college in the last 20 years. If that's true, he's also the only quarterback that you can say that about that's stepping into as good a team as he's just stepped into. And I mean, that includes the coaching staff, who is, as you mentioned, revamped in a good way. These guys aren't experienced. You mentioned Shane Waldron. This isn't his first go-around as a coordinator. This is his first go-around as a coordinator in Chicago. And I think the culture that Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles have set in that Bears organization, like, you can't step into a better situation. Now you talk about the receiving core, the offensive line, the running backs. Just the offense he's stepping into is ridiculous, talent-wise. Some of them are new, but some aren't. And then you got a defense that's a top defense in this league. Don't step into that very often as the number 1 overall pick. So there's so many good things that he's stepping into. And when I hear him and others, when I hear him talk about the situation, and when I hear others within the organization talk about him, I think it's a perfect mix at the perfect time.
If you were to go back in time, and when you first came into the NFL, out of all the team situations that you ever went into, so when you first came to Chicago, when you first went to Detroit, when you first started off as an undrafted rookie, what was the best situation that you ever walked into?
Well, the situation that I walked into in Chicago was actually the best because it was the only one I ever had where someone said, okay, any team ever said, forget everyone else in the league. You're the guy. And so that's the only time that ever happened. And so what I would say, and the coaching staff, Dave Wanstedt put together, I think was great. And I think the players, though, from top to bottom, not all the players, but from top to bottom, the collection of players we had in Detroit was better. If we could have had, and this is no slight on the players with Chicago, I'm just saying sort of as a mass group, if we could have had the coaching staff in Chicago and the players pretty much in Detroit, I think we would have couple Super Bowls.
Wow. Both. Hey, I wish we could go back in time and look at that again. I also, Eric, I hope you know that I said within the last 20 years, because clearly you were the best quarterback prospect at the time, right before the 2000s. So just want to put that out there for the Chicago Bears.
Appreciate that. You did
anytime.
preface that. Well, you did allude to that in the very beginning or the start of this podcast. So thanks.
Yes. Yeah, of course. I, have to pay what respect's due. Obviously, Eric, come on now. You know me. I will. So going back to Caleb real quick, and this is something that a lot of obviously fans can see that he can throw on the run. He's very athletic. He's got good spiral accuracy.
Yeah.
But for you as a professional quarterback, what you've seen and playing in the game, what are Caleb's top strengths that he brings already to the NFL?
I think if a resilience and sort of a competitive fire. And here's where it needs to show up and where I think it has shown up. When you make 1, 2, or 3 interceptions, after you've maybe lost a game, after the others perceive you as the one responsible for losing the game. A good example of that is Jared Goff, who after their Super Bowl, when he was with the Rams, when they played New England, there was one guy responsible for that loss, not 2. It was Jared Goff. And then he rebounded to become who he is today and who he became during the course of last season. And so I think Caleb Williams has that in him. That's the most critical part, because this is not smooth sailing. You are, literally and figuratively playing in the Windy City. And so you're going to have some bad outings, like everyone's talked about, the last OTA practice, the first one. And then there's going to be games played, and there's going to be games played where you lose. And everyone's going to be pointing the finger at him. And he's got to be able to calmly not react and not make it personal, and just calmly go about learning how to do what he's now learning how to do.
I mean, that's a different answer, because a lot of people obviously are like, oh, he's got to work on, because he did have a bad practice yesterday. And Bears fans, as always, hit the panic button like, oh no, he had a bad practice. We're done. We got to rebuild this whole thing all over again. Typical Chicago Bears Nation reaction. I was not one of those, fortunately, for the first time. But I think that he does bring, he has everything gifted wise. I mean, he's a very gifted athlete, but I agree with you from a mentality standpoint. He has to be able to get over those losses, especially with the pressure of the entire city on his shoulders, because, we could have gotten a huge haul for Justin Fields. We could have stuck with him one more year, but Poles is like, let's bring in the new guy. Let's see what he can do. It's a big risk. And obviously if he wins, he's going to have a statue built for him. He's going to be a Chicago legend, clearly. So it's good to hear that. But Eric, what do you think, based off just that bad practice that we're talking about? Had some trouble reading the defenses, struggled with the playbook a little bit. Obviously, he only had a couple practices with it. But what are some areas that you see in him that he needs to improve on that is an easy fix?
The only easy fix is time. That's what is, day one is day one for everybody. And so I think that over time, he won't have to worry about memorizing the playbook or the play that's called from the sideline, or he'll be able to hear the play and then sort of digest it in his mind as to what some possible scenarios are during that play before he even calls it in the huddle. And there's a certain calmness that comes over time that he doesn't have right now, which is fine. So this is what I was talking about, Nick, is being able to calmly react or calmly not react to what's being said about you at whatever under whatever circumstances that comes. And what me and other players, whether it be football or other sport or just life in general, if you have a way and have worked on how to stay calm at all times, then you don't react to what's being said about you or written about you, or, in whatever way the media gets after people. You have to separate yourself from other people's interpretations of what you do.
When did you think you learned that for yourself, or someone showed you that ropes in regards of how to handle that? When did you learn that in the NFL?
I would point back in 1990 when I was with the Lions, and I wasn't even playing. I was in reserve, and back then, when you were in reserve, you were in reserve for the whole year. And so all I was doing was practicing, and I couldn't get my thought process to slow down. And so I went to the team doctor, Dr. Birch, who passed away now. But I explained my situation. He goes, "Okay, I think I got someone for you." Well, who he got with me for is a guy named Kevin Wildenhouse. And Kevin's retired today, but not coincidentally, he, as a retired psychologist, he works with a lot of athletes and teams, pro teams. And so mostly in the Detroit area. So anyway, that's working with Kevin in terms of this guided imagery, right? Where you just basically sit back, lay back, whatever, and you, through breathing and sort of mental imagery, you place yourself in a calm environment. And then it's not like Kevin knew the game entirely, but he knew enough. And so it was things like, breaking the huddle, like I was saying before, rehearse the play before you even say it in the huddle, rehearse it in your mind, and calmly go to the line. And as a quarterback, you got to know the protections and the protection schemes, but you also have to know defensively, are they tipping their hand in one way or another? Coverage wise, blitz wise, whatever. And so those are things that you can slow down, and you just make your choices based on that. And then it's amazing how the mechanical part of things falls into place when you slow everything down, and your decision making falls into place. All those things do. And I think that's what Caleb Williams, if he hasn't already, will eventually arrive at.
Well, hopefully he sees this video and he takes that to heart, because hopefully, I know that we talked about it. Justin and you never connected. It would be, have you and Caleb connected yet, or not yet?
No, we haven't. I don't know how to, but I would. I'd love to. I'll be out there in June, so maybe I'll get a note to him and say, I'll be playing the Bears golf outing, which is out at Hilge's place in Kenosha, I guess it is. So I've been going out there for several years, and but I always stay downtown for the first couple of days. So,
well, that's noted. That's noted for me too, because obviously we have to go to La Scarola as always. Because
sure enough,
can't not go to La Scarola.
Very good point.
So Erik, the big question is, obviously, a lot of people are putting the pressure on Williams. A lot of people think that Williams is going to break 4,000 yards this year, which means he will break your record of 3,838 yards on top of 29 passing touchdowns.
Well, let's just say one thing. Do it in 16 games.
Okay.
Because actually in 17 games, it doesn't count. So,
okay.
Okay. You'll count it and everybody else will count it, but actually it doesn't. So, but my point, I'm being facetious here, but what I would say to Caleb is, don't worry about records, because now that's back into that same thing again. Don't worry about an outcome ever. Worry about what your process is from day to day to day to day. One of those days is going to be a game day. The other days aren't. And so you have to put yourself in a mindset where you just go about doing one thing after another in a way that works for you, typically to stay calm, and then let the accountants keep score.
Yeah,
Right?
you know what?
And they will, by the way, that no one's going to miss a beat on all the numbers that get put up, whether it be wins or yards or touchdowns or whatever.
So the message to Caleb Williams is that if you can break the record in 16 games, you truly broke the record. That's
here's what I say.
I'm just kidding.
I say break it all day long, but I suspect, and like I said, I've never met him, I haven't talked to him, but I suspect he could care less about the end result in terms of records, numbers, blah, blah, blah. He just wants to have a good thought process for how to do his job every single day, whether it's practice or game, and then leading teams to wins. And at the end of the day, this is another thing. Frank Gans, he was a special teams coach in Detroit, and I think you've heard me mention him before. I wasn't even on special teams, but yet I would go sit in his meetings, and that's what he would say. He had all these things that whoever's played for Frank, and I don't care what team it was. One of them is, hey, rely on your training and let the accountants keep score. Done.
I think, Eric, every time I interview you, I feel like I need to have a shirt made of some sort of quote, like like right there. That's an inspirational quote. I think I need to start making some shirts, and I'll always put EK on the bottom.
So Frank Gans, I'll just say this. Frank Gans has passed away now. He was on the operating table getting a knee replacement.
Oh.
His legacy lives on in the way that people that played for him don't just quote him, they live their lives like that. And I'll give you a good example. Years ago, I took what was supposed to be Griffin and Dylan, just Dylan ended up going. We took a trip back east that included a lot of cool stuff. One of which is we went to the Naval Academy or Naval Base at Annapolis, Maryland, where Frank Gans is interned. Dylan was, what was he? Maybe, I don't know, 12 years old, 11 years old. And he'll hear me rip off Frank Gans quotes every day. So does Mike Utley. So does Ken Dow, everybody. And it's just, that's the way, to me, that's the way you want to live your life. You want to have a living legacy, but you also want to have one afterward. Mike Utley told a friend of mine that we played youth football together. He's now paralyzed from the waist down. And Mike told James, he goes, now Mike's 6'5", right? So he goes, when I used to enter a room, people would know me, people would look at me or notice me because I was big. He goes, and then after a while, they noticed me because I was in a wheelchair. Now they notice me because of my attitude. And he goes, James, that's what you need to figure out what you want your living legacy to be. And I just saw James last night, and he's now in a wheelchair. He was in bed, and when I walked in his room, he was literally like, we're watching a basketball game. He was moving around like no problem, and in his chair, and knows all the staff on his floor, was introducing me left and right. And it's not like I hadn't been there before, but my point is, like, not solely because of Mike, but that's what you want to do in life, is you want to leave your mark in the way that you live it so that others can be inspired by it.
I love it. And that's Eric, you just made another shirt. So I mean, everything put together, it sounds like you're excited for Caleb Williams, which is great.
I am.
And
I'm excited for Caleb Williams, the Bears organization. Let me just say this. In my lifetime, this has never happened before, where the Bears, the Lions, and the Chargers are all going to be very good this year. Never happened before.
I love it for you. I love it for you because that's exciting. I mean, you get to have a lot of celebrations.
No doubt. in a new house.
in a new house. Yeah, congratulations on that too. That's super
Yeah,
exciting. So, Erik, appreciate you coming on. I mean, I'm sure before week 1 we'll have you on again. Also, I'll see you in June.
At La Scarola, right?
At La Scarola, or maybe we'll hit the links, or we can do a combination of both. And then obviously you'll have to see Marquita too, because she's still asking about you all the time.
Number 1 fan. I love it.
There you go. But Erik, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it and excited for what's next for the Bears and the Chargers and the Lions. I'm excited for the Bears-Lions matchups this year. They're going to be a lot of fun.
On Thanksgiving Day, no less.
And I assume you'll be there?
Well, I would hope so. Yeah. Unless we're having, I got to have something at my house though, Thanksgiving too. So, but that would be a hell of a game to go to, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I think
I played one of those one time.
I think you did against the Bears, right?
Yeah, we won.
Yeah, yeah, well, someone won. You won. Someone won. But Erik, thanks for coming on. As always, really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll have you on again soon.
Appreciate it, Nick. Thank you, buddy.
Go Bears. Actually, go Bears, and thank you everyone for tuning in this episode of Just Another Year Chicago Bears. My name is Nick Rohde. As always, thank you for tuning in, and bear down, baby.